Hello, it's iBookBinding podcast, and today our guest is Kate Holland, a bookbinder from the United Kingdom. We had Kate as a guest during our bookish talk some time ago, and now we invited her for a longer talk. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Stepan. Hi, Pavel.
Yeah, and Pavel joins us from Moscow as usual. I guess we need to to start not a competition but a quiz about Pavel's floral elements over there, because he changes them all the time.
Notice.
Yeah. So the person who will guess that which plant will appear in the next video should get a prize or something. Yeah. I guess we wanted to talk about lots of things and continue some of the discussions we started in the previous videos, and but maybe the first topic I wanted to cover or to touch was Designer Bookbinders as an organization, institution, and your role in the Designer Bookbinders and the competitions that are conducted by held by Designer Bookbinders. So can you tell us a bit about it?
Sure. So hi again. Thank you for inviting me back. I think we had so much to say last time. You needed to find some more space for me so I could, stop me talking then. Yeah, Designer Bookbinders there's two societies in the UK dedicated to bookbinding. There's Society of Bookbinders and Designer Bookbinders. And Designer Bookbinders, I'm a member of both, but I am a fellow of Designer Bookbinders. And,
we definitely need to invite someone from Society of Bookbinders, because we sort of focused on Designer Bookbinders in this past months, and this feels really unfair.
Yeah, because there's some very, very good bookbinders there as well.
Could you talk a bit about the fellow part? How you became a fellow? What's the process?
So
and what does this mean? Yeah.
So it means so say you're starting out on your bookbinding journey and you're learning about fine binding and design binding, and then ideally the path is you enter some competitions and you talk to some fellows and you start building up, and then people start looking at you and they're saying, oh, you've got potential, apply to be a licentiate. And so the licentiate is the sort of first step on the ladder. At the moment we have about, I think off the top of my head, about 3 or 4 licentiates. There should be more like about 10. And you have 5 years, I think it is, to keep building up your work, and then you can apply. Within that 5 years, you apply for fellowship. And for fellowship, you have to produce 3 design bindings, and they are judged by all the fellows, and then they say yes or no whether you can become a fellow. And I think did I say there's about 30 fellows and about 3 licentiates. And the reason there's so few licentiates, we're concerned, is that there's not, I think we talked about this before, that there's no bookbinding education here in the UK. So there's not new people coming up from underneath. So we're really trying to get out to the colleges and encourage new people.
Is it fellowship for life, or is it for some?
I think so. I've got a piece of paper on the wall that no one said take it down. I think you can be booted off if you disgrace yourself, or you have to promise to promote Designer Bookbinders in the correct way, and not. But I think so, as long as I behave, yeah.
And how are functions distributed among fellows? I know there is a president to the society, and there are a number of fellows. And what do you do as a fellow?
So a part of becoming a fellow, you really have to agree to help with the running of the society. And so I think some people take more on their shoulders than others, but as is the way with all cooperatives. So we have an exhibition committee, we have an education committee, we have, I personally run the the DB UK Bookbinding Competition with another fellow, Sue Doggett. And that competition is only for UK-based binders, and it's for anyone who works in the UK but is not a fellow. So it's really trying to encourage new people in and get on that ladder. But then there's also the international competition.
And you have to be a resident in the UK, as far as I
remember.
remember.
You have to have bound the book in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are here and you do the binding in the UK, I believe that makes it still a legitimate entry, because we have had people who've studied here, made the book, but then gone back to their home and but still been eligible to enter the competition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whereas the international competition is open to the whole world, to fellows. That's at the Bodleian Library, and it's organised by the Getty Foundation. So that's the big cheese. I'm the petit fromage, and we're just trying to encourage. I really like getting new people into bookbinding. That's my thing. So yeah.
And how wide a net have you managed to cast in terms of international submissions? I mean, I know people from all over Europe and Americas apply, but what about South America, Asia, Australia?
Certainly South America. And I'm not in charge of it, so I don't know who has applied this time around. But in the past, it's worldwide. There's Australians, Korea, Hong Kong, Singapore, Argentina. I can think of someone. Yeah, so it's pretty Eurocentric and North America, but definitely covers the world.
And your competition, how big is it?
So we've got about 100 entries this year, but actually that's only about 60 binders, because in order to enter the competition, you have to do a set book, and we have the Folio Society sponsor us. So they give us all the sets of sheets for whichever book we decide we want. They give us a short list of titles, we pick one, and then they send us sheets to be bound. And part of the rules of entering the competition is you must bind the set book, which I think I think it's a really interesting thing just to see how different binders respond to the same text. And I think it's a really good level playing field to, I think there's been a lot of discussion. Do we keep the set book? Do we lose the set book? But at the moment, it's working well. So,
is it always a literary text?
Yes, because the Folio Society, that's what they do. They're going to get a good text with on good paper and with good illustrations. So I mean, it's a lot of people, and I don't encourage this, but some people buy the sets of sheets because it's a cheap set of sheets to bind, and they maybe don't get it ready in time for this competition, but you'll then find it coming as an open choice in the next competition. So you have to enter the set book, but then there's also the open choice, and that is anything goes. So we have a whole array from book arts to book sculptures to fine bindings to, yeah.
Still, surely you have some idea of what a book is. I mean, they can't just do anything, and there is a lot of back and forth about what a book is, what a book isn't.
Okay, so when I was entering competitions, I was asking fellows, what do you feel constitutes a winning binding, let's say, if we're going to get competitive about it. And they say, it's got to be, it's a fine binding. It's got to be bound, ideally bound in leather or vellum. A cloth binding really probably wouldn't cut it. It should have sewn headbands, it should have leather joints, it should have doublures, it should have ideally some kind of tooling. And it's all about form and function, you know, that you've got to respond to the text. It's your artistic response to the text, but it's also technically it's got to be tip top. So it's the combination of the two, and that's what we're looking for. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, we just recorded a bookish talk with Laurie Sauer just 40 minutes ago,
Okay.
and we are these two podcasts will be separated in time by weeks, but for us it's just something that happened moments ago, and we discussed your different book structures. So we are sort of returning from this imaginary world of experimental structures to a more strict world of design binding, and it's an interesting contrast for us. And I guess I will recommend our viewers to watch our talk with Laurie.
Absolutely, and Laurie is judging the competition this year, so you know she's coming at it from a completely different angle, but she still recognizes all those strict techniques that are expected. But at the same time, we have a book arts prize, we have a non-leather prize, we have a paper prize, a letter. You know, we're trying to widen the net to encourage more people to come in, because if you're starting out in bookbinding, those strict, you know, discipline, leather binding, gold tooling is a bit scary, and it takes time to become adept enough. So we're just trying to widen the net to encourage more people up, and then hopefully they'll get bitten by the bug and want to study further. But yes, I suppose at the end of the day, we are essentially all about fine binding.
Do you know of any competitions that are more accepting towards the experimental structures or something like that?
There is a book arts there's lots of book arts competitions in the UK. I think one's called Turn the Page. Off the top of my head, I certainly I don't know off the top of my head, but there are book arts specific competitions. And again, I think I talked about this, about it slightly frustrates me that the two worlds are slightly separate, that the book arts world and the bookbinding world, there's not enough crossover, and you know, we could all learn from each other, I believe, a little bit. And so we're trying to bring in a bit of book arts, but without upsetting the fine binders. And it would be nice if
this is hard.
Yeah. It'd be nice if the book arts people, you know, might like to include us. I don't know. I'm not saying they don't. They're all lovely.
So now we know what. Could you talk a bit about who and where? I mean, demographically and say geographically, where are people sending you the books from? Because so far we've mostly talked to bookbinders from old counties of England. I mean, surely there's something going on in Northern Ireland, in Scotland.
Can't think of anyone from Northern Ireland at the moment, but there's certainly, I would say, the entries, geographically it covers the country, or the mainland. And certainly I've got ones from Scotland, from Wales, and demographically all age ranges and all genders, and it really is a melting pot of and what's exciting actually this year is that we've got some new people whose names I don't recognize, but who are producing really good bindings. You know, they're working in leather and they're experimenting with tooling, and so hopefully, you know, these guys can be encouraged to become licentiates and then move up to fellowship in time.
And how young are people starting to be at the level that they can think of becoming a licentiate?
It depends when you started, how much you practice, but you can be in your 20s and 30s. Certainly, I was a licentiate when I was, 2015, when I was 30. So, and I now consider myself, I feel like I'm one of the younger bookbinders still. We need some younger ones, please.
we've been dying to talk to the oldest fellow of your society. So far, this interview has been evading us. But how old are the people who participate in those kind of competitions? How old do people generally work in bookbinding?
Well, the joy of bookbinding is that people keep going until they drop dead. You know, as long as your hands work, and it's still a thing. So there's definitely a lot of people take up bookbinding when they retire. So they've only just started learning when they retire at 65, 70. So they're entering competitions in their late 70s, 80s. And it's completely legitimate. And as you say, there's plenty of professional binders still working in their 70s. Certainly, I can think of. And I think, Bernard Middleton was still working in his 80s, I think.
So this was a bit of strange of a year because of lockdowns, COVID, and all these things. And I understand that the international competition was postponed a bit. What about the competition that you are in charge of, the British competition, and what are how COVID influenced all the things?
A lot. It has been frustrating. We'd made the decision about 3 years ago to go biennial partially because we were clashing with the Society of Bookbinders competition, and we were seeing the numbers dropping off, and we were worried that maybe it was the SOB competition causing that, or maybe it's the lack of people education, or so. Anyway, we decided to go biennial, and that should have happened last year. But then COVID came along. So then we moved it to, then it was going to be in February, the judging. We moved it to, we thought at least we'll give it 7-8 months. Surely we'll be okay by then, no problem. And so now we're looking at judging in April. So we've had to move it again. And that's the very earliest that our government is looking at releasing us enough to allow this to happen.
So the judging is the problem because you have to judge all the books in person.
Yeah. So I've got one of the main judges is judging by Zoom, but she's going to have her own assistant, there handling the books, talking about the books to her as she can see them through that she has to do that because she's shielding. But yes, it was imperative to us that at least 1 or 2 judges were here in person to judge it. You can't do it through a screen. It's some books photograph so much better than others, and it's all down to the how good the photographer was as to whether the book looks good. And so it's you have to see them in person and handle them and see how they work and how they function, and because we're looking at the function as much as the form, so you can't see that from a single still photograph.
And will there be a shortlist and then the winner? How does that work?
So we're going to put up all of the entries in an anonymous catalogue about a week before the judging, so everyone can see all of the entries. So it's like a sort of pre-exhibition, and then we also, all the sponsors of the prizes, they judge their own prizes, so they're all going to receive that catalogue as well. And they personally can choose their own shortlist. So that on judging day, I will have a Zoom interview with each of them, and they can say, show me this, 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 and this book. They'll have a shortlist of 5. So, but the main judges will have to come here in person to see the books. And then after they've judged, we'll 2 weeks after the judging, we'll have an awards ceremony. We've just expanded it to 300 attendees on Zoom. So you guys, I'm sure there'll be space. And then we'll announce the winners at that, and then post up a renewed exhibition which shows you the names and the prize winners.
I wanted to attend some sort of Designer Bookbinders event for quite some time, and it always was an issue for me because I need to get a visa to go to the UK. Unlike
Sure.
these citizens of the European Union, I'm a Russian citizen, so it's much harder for me. And British visas are very expensive, and well, it's usually just not reasonable for me to get visa. But yeah, this time at least I have a chance.
Yeah. So there are some upsides to COVID. You know,
Yeah.
we suddenly get to meet people from all over the world, and
Yeah.
I've had so much more interaction with people, you know, all over the world since lockdown. And you can attend seminars and classes, and you know, do live video links, and it's great. I hope it, you know, that aspect I hope will keep.
Well, some things will definitely change, and compared to what was before lockdown.
Yeah.
Could you talk a bit more about the sponsors? You've mentioned the Folio Society already. I can see what's their interest. Who are other companies?
So Folio Society, they sponsor the sets of sheets, and they also sponsor 2 prizes: the set book first and second prize. Then we have the Cloth Workers Company, who is one of the big London guilds. They sponsor the open choice first and second. They then will exhibit their winning book is exhibited at Cloth Workers in the centre of London, and they've got a big collection of design bindings in their library there. But they're also really good at they've been funding us to go out and teach in art colleges. They've funded me to go and teach at Westdean on the conservation course there to teach bookbinding. So they're really interested in promoting and helping spreading the word about bookbinding. And then we've got the other prizes. We've got, I suppose there's a Shepherd's, you're going to test me now, aren't you? Shepherd's Book Art, Ratchford's non-leather, Harmattan leather. I think theirs is the, what was it? Anyway, it's the good handling of the leather. Because you know how quite often you see people and they've got thumbprints and they've got big holes in the pairing. And so Harmattan is the sympathetic handling.
I really want to invite Mark to our podcast as well to show around his production facilities and talk about making leather and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, and also with the other big leather suppliers is Hewitt's. And a lot of people use their leathers for dyeing because they produce a lot of the fair calf and the alum tawd. So they're the interesting use of leather. And then we've got, so that we did have the St. Bride's finishing prize, but it's now just been renamed the Bernard Middleton finishing prize. And I don't know, there's lots and lots. I think there's about 20 different ones. Mags Brothers are big book dealers. And then there's various ones named after bookbinders from the past, which have been sponsored, you know, through bequests after their death. They've left money to sponsor prizes in their name. So we've got Elizabeth Greenhill Gold Tooling and Sally Lou Smith Forwarding, and yeah. So we would try and not spread, you know, try and spread the web wide, net wide, but still keeping it under control.
So this is an absolutely massive undertaking. It must be take a lot of your time.
The organising.
Yeah.
This is my 5th bookbinding competition. If we do a tour of the studio maybe later, you can see the big pile of books at the end of my studio, which means I can't get to my sink at the moment because it's covered. Anyway, but yeah, I curse it and I love it, but you know, I think it's a worthwhile thing to do. And you know, I think, you know, as much as we do things for ourselves and make money for ourselves, doing things voluntary and helping others and encouraging other people to take it up is as rewarding, really, isn't it? You guys do this for the love, really, don't you?
Well, yeah.
And for the fun of it. How long has this competition been running?
I think it started in the 1950s. I can tell you exactly, 1955. And I'll read out the initial reason it was established was to encourage students, craftsmen, and apprentices of bookbinding to produce originally designed and well-bound books, and to give them the opportunity to exhibit their technical and artistic skills. So we've really gone back to that students and apprentices aspect of it, and we're really just trying to get in new young blood, and we've gone back to the original. It's not meant to be a selling exhibition. It's not meant to be a place where collectors fight over books. It's meant to be about the new bods.
I guess the attitude towards design bindings and bookbinding in general has changed quite a bit since 1950s, 1960s. Did the competition change as well along this
in the
way?
1950s, back in the 70s, they'd have hundreds of entries. They would be exhibited at. When I first entered the competition, it was exhibited at the British Library, and there'd be about 200 entries, and I think they had exhibitions at the Victoria and Albert. So I would say actually it was more popular then, and it is still popular now. People really respect it as a competition. But I think society respected bookbinding more then than it does now, or recognized it. So we'll keep banging the drum and we'll get there.
I'm not sure if it's about respect or maybe about just knowing about
knowledge.
This craft.
Yeah.
Awareness.
Yeah, awareness. Yeah, I was looking for this word. Thank you, Pavel. Yeah.
I was wondering what kind of press coverage do you get? Who is still interested in those kind of things? I mean, is it purely niche publications and journals, or do you get London press? It is a London competition.
Well, at the moment it's not. It's a Somerset competition because it's in my workshop. Normally it's a London competition. Press. It's pretty specialist, the coverage. I've actually got the guy who is the UK correspondent for fine books and collections who's going to write a piece about it, which is more an American publication. So I'm hoping that with a bit of that, but it doesn't really get into the general press. Maybe I could put it on my list of things to do is send out it's promoting stuff and PR, and people love it. The press love it, but yeah, it's time. I'll try harder.
Does the society have any kind of public relations people affiliated with it, or is it purely through your own social networks?
We have social media. We have Hannah Brown, who does all our social media, so she does a brilliant job. We have we have our own newsletters, and then the New Bookbinder, which is a very respected journal that comes out every year. But no, we don't have a PR department, or even we don't employ a PR person.
I mean, would you like to? Is it just that you've never got to it, or is it too expensive?
I think, to be honest, we've had one in the past, and it proved expensive and very little results. Was my memory of it.
Okay, yeah, this happens.
Yeah.
So you with the British competition, you went biennial, and now you have to postpone. Does it mean that the next competition will be next year or in 2 years?
Well,
what are the current
luckily,
plans?
the Society of Bookbinders also had to postpone their competition a year, so we still alternate.
Okay.
And then the international competition is also this year. Well, the hand-in is this year, and then the announcement is next year.
But the international competition is triennial, or?
I think 4 years. I think it's
4 years. Okay.
4,
yeah.
Maybe it's 3.
Okay.
Should know.
Yeah, I maybe I mess up because I know that open set in the States is triennial, and well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the Designer Bookbinders competition right now.
There's a lot of competitions. This is the problem. There
Well,
are not enough bookbinders to enter them.
yeah, that's a bit of a problem. But many of the bookbinders I know who want to participate in competitions or who participate in competitions are ready to to take part in more than one per year. So, well, that's lucky.
Yeah.
That's good if they have time.
But then we've also talked to a few people who said competitions never again. Because it can be stressful and it's a big investment of time.
It's an investment of time, and I like having that. I like having the tight deadline. It just it gets your juices flowing faster, and it's a great platform for people to find out about you. Certainly when you're starting out, if you haven't built up a reputation yet, it's a really good platform for people to see you. I've never entered the open set. I haven't quite got round to doing that. You do have to slightly pick your competitions, I think. You obviously can't do them all.
And speaking of platforms, I was wondering, once you're established as a bookbinder, once you have a flow of clients, etc., what would be the appropriate stage for you to enter? What kind of exhibition would that be? Competition would that be?
What sort of the entry level?
I mean like the top tier bookbinders. What's the Olympics of bookbinding?
What, internationally?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say the DB International Competition, of course, because I am biased. But there's amazing ones. There's the French one, which I can't remember the name of, which has been going for a long time. There's the open set, which is quite new, but that attracts some really important names. Competitions they're a bit of a lottery. You get some really, really good binders and they don't win anything, and that's why you don't enter, because it's really damaging to the ego. You're putting yourself out there in public and you've just got to suck it up, and pick yourself up and get on, and you're publicly being humiliated, I suppose, because it certainly happened to me once or twice, and you're like, oh, okay, all right, and you got to pick yourself up and come back bigger and stronger next time around.
Then, especially in those very big competitions, not everyone can be a winner. Like in photography, even in wildlife photography, there is this National Geographic competition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they get tens of thousands of entries, and even the very best photographers win maybe once in their life.
Yeah.
There is also I think the social aspect of it all. Is there some event in the end where all the binders can come and talk to each other?
Yeah, no. So certainly around the UK one, normally we have drinks and a private view, and everyone crams into a room and they drink some warm white wine, and they're allowed out. And the international is a bit more glamorous. It's at the Bodleian Library, and there's a dinner beforehand where the prize winners meet the collectors, and but yeah, I don't know if you guys get out much, but my experience of bookbinders is they're quite a solitary bunch, and they work on their own, and it's nice to get out and talk to people. This is why this podcast is so great, to have someone to talk to about bookbinding.
So you mentioned some things about it, but can you talk a bit more about your personal experience of taking part in Designer Bookbinders competition, and maybe in some other competitions? I don't know if you took part in other competitions as well.
The
and
UK
fails as well.
I know. I'm thinking, oh, what shall I say? What shall I admit to? My experience of entering DB competitions, the UK one, has been great for me. You know, I won, I suppose the first time I entered, I didn't get anything, but it was just a joy to see your book being exhibited in a central London venue and to meet other bookbinders and for them to say, you know, it's okay, don't worry about it, but keep going. There's something there, you know, it's worth you persevering. And then I think the second competition, I won the lettering prize, which then the prize for that was a commission. So that was my first commission, proper commission. And then you sort of work your way up, and then you get a second prize. And then one year I got the Mansfield Medal, which is that's what you're aiming for, which is the best book in the competition. And most fellows, certainly of DB, will have got that at some point in their time. And then after you've got that, and then you sort of you know, you've hit the heights. It's hard to go back and not get it again. So, but I did enter again, and it's also part of the if you're a licentiate, you're sort of expected to enter it, so that people can see that you're progressing and still improving. And then the international competition I've entered, I suppose I've entered 3 times, and the first time I entered, my book didn't even get chosen for the exhibition, and I was gutted because I was like, I thought, this is great, this is outrageous, how dare you. And then, you know, the second one, it was in the exhibition, and then the last one I got a silver prize, which is the sort of, I think there's 15 or 20 silver prizes. And Society of Bookbinders, I have entered once or twice and got nothing. You know, who knows why? And that's about it. I think that's about it. I haven't entered here.
So no competitions from other countries?
No, I don't think so. No, I think they've always been UK based. Scotland. I have entered the Elizabeth Souter exhibition up in Scotland, which seems to always have a lot of Spanish winners, strangely. But it's yeah, no, but I will open set. That's on my list.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you yourself keep an eye on what's going on worldwide? Do you look through the catalogs of exhibitions and competitions from Europe?
Yeah, absolutely, because it's interesting to see what people are doing and what's going on in the bookbinding world. But not so much, because I think I really like to I think it's really hard not to soak up these influences from other bookbinders. You'll see something and go, oh my God, that's great. And then in about a year's time, you'll find yourself doing that exact same thing. And so I do look at bookbinding exhibitions and catalogues, but I don't look at them in order to get ideas. I look at them out of interest, more to say, how on earth did they do that? You know, that's always you know, you look at a picture and you're like, oh, I like that effect, or I like that, you know, and you try and store it in your memory bank, but obviously not replicate it. I think it's better to look for your influences in the wider world. And
for you, that wider world would be?
Everything and anything. I mean, it's, you know, it's fashion or music or film or nature or art or, you know, anything. I couldn't specify where I go and get I think the joy of the mobile phone, you know, having that camera in your pocket is as you're walking. What I would like in my life is to have a camera in my head, so that every time you see something, you're like, got it, just like that, as you saw it. Because whenever you get your phone out and you take a picture, it's never quite the same. It's not as you remember it. But if someone could invent that, that would be good.
Well, I guess we have to wait some 20 years and we'll have stuff like that in our heads. It definitely goes this way.
Yeah, we'll be AI transhumans making leather-bound books.
Yeah, with new Luddites and all that stuff. People are rejecting the new technologies and breaking the machines or something. It will be fun.
Could you talk a bit about the current Licentiates of the Society, who they are, what they do? I
think I'm right in saying there's 3 of them. There's Richard Beadsmore, Glenn Malkin and Gillian Stewart. And Glenn and Richard are both applying for fellowship this year, I happen to know. I think it's okay for me to say that. Gillian obviously feels not quite ready, but the issue is if Glenn and Richard become fellows, then we've got one licentiate, and we really need more in that bracket. Gillian's young and from Scotland, and I think Glenn is a professional bookbinder, and I think Richard took it up in semi-retirement, so they're a range.
Yeah, I know Glenn at least on Facebook, and he does some amazing stuff. I don't the other two names are not familiar to me, but this means nothing, but because yeah.
Bookbinding is a small world, but then you suddenly discover something like, wow, how did I never know about this person? So it is.
Yeah, this definitely happens, and then I always have problems with names. So yeah, maybe I saw their work, but I just don't recognize names. And but our viewers are free to to browse the internet and search for their works and.
Which I've just done, and I'm very impressed. All three of them are
they're really
very
good
impressive
bookbinders.
work.
They're very able.
So how are you planning to look for more licentiates? Oh,
well,
what can you do? What can you do?
We've got a program called Transferring Design, and that's been sponsored by the Cloth Workers. And so there's about 5 of us who've gone into art colleges and book arts, or I teach at West Dean. I teach book conservation students there, and I've been to University of the West of England and other fellows, and then I've since then had about 5 or 6 students come from that introduction to bookbinding. They've come then to my workshop, and we've done a sort of the next stage, but it's all been subsidized. All their fees have been subsidized by this program. And I've now got 2 weeks of tuition coming up here. One is it's called My First Leather Binding. So, you've been doing your multi-section rounding and backing, but actually then moving on to covering in leather. So I'm trying to, get this, simplify it so that it's not scary. And then I'm also doing a week of advanced, aspects of fine binding. So looking at head banding and leather joints and doubleurs and things like that, and inlays and onlays. But I'm just talking about myself. I'm not sure what other fellows who are on this program are doing at the moment because of the lockdown. But yeah, so I'm hoping that from after this program, 1 or 2 people will then go on to say, oh, I've got enough confidence to apply, to enter at the competition. It's a long, slow process. It is, but even if you get 1 or 2 more new people, it will be worth it. And yeah, Instagram is great. I put up, I'm running a class. I've been inundated with people who want to come and learn, because there's so many easy basic bookbinding, 1-day workshops, but there's not very much after you've got done that first initial learning.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you next. How do you approach your constructing your course? I mean, it's not just coming and showing something that will come up. How do you plan it? How do you structure it?
But when I do the sort of basic bookbinding week, I teach city and guilds for shepherds, and I do their unit. I do their unit 118, unit 119, and it's there's a week which is basic bookbinding, which is sort of single section pamphlets, and then it's multi-section rounding and backing, and it covers ploughing, it's all case bindings. And then I think the next stage is sketchbooks. So I've been teaching within that format, but I can see ways of, and then there's also an introduction to leather week, when they do a half leather binding and a full leather binding, I think off the top of my head. but they're still case bindings. They're not with boards attached. So I've actually devised a course, which I'm actually doing this course for the first time. So I can report back if it was successful, but I think it should be. I devised a way of covering in leather, which is not a case binding, but it's not a fine binding. It still has a hollow, it has boards attached, but using the fray knot board attachment. They're not laced on boards. And it's a 3/4 hollow, 3/4 on, 3 off hollow. And it just seems to simplify the covering in leather process without it being a case binding.
Do you also teach the design aspect of designer bookbinding? Because that's the most difficult to transfer from one person to another. How do you design an interesting binding?
I struggle personally with being a designer bookbinder because I wasn't allowed to do art at school. I was told I had to do needlework, and and I've always, everyone says, oh, you're so creative, you're an artist. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm an artisan, I'm a craftsperson, I'm not an artist. But increasingly, as I've then had to go and get evening classes in drawing and painting. I'm doing a graphic design course just to build up my confidence to say, yes, I can design stuff. You know, you don't need to have an education in it necessarily. You need to have an eye, and you need to have open eyes and an open mind, and just to soak everything up and process it and come out with something. And you're right, you can't teach that. You can give people techniques to help them, and you can give them if they say, I want to do this, you can say, well, you can use this process to achieve that, or you can use that process, and you can show them how to do those techniques. But no, you can't magically give them, the secret to great design. I can't. I'm not a teacher of design.
A few of my friends teach design in Moscow universities, and it's almost always about process, because like speaking a language, the only way to learn how to design things is to design things. Mm-hmm. So they give different scenarios and see what people come up with, and those that have taste, whatever that is, usually go furthest, which is why also it's very rarely really young people who succeed in this field, because until you've seen lots and lots and lots of different kinds of art, and not just art, architecture, nature, until you've seen a lot, it's so difficult to draw from what you have.
No, it's interesting. You need life experience, I think, and you need to have soaked up as much and lived. You need to have. I was going to say something. That's what I was going to say. Mark Cockram, who's Studio 5, who I think you guys have talked to in the past. I think the first day I went to see him, he'd pick me up from, not pick me up, that's not quite the right phrase. He'd come to see my exhibition at London College of Printing, and I'd won the prize for the best bookbinding student that year. And he said, oh, I think you should come and see me. I think you've got potential to be a designer bookbinder. And I arrived and I said, oh, I can't do art. I can't do design. I wasn't allowed to do art, And he said, look, you've chosen the clothes that you're wearing. You've matched the colors. There's something in your brain, or everyone has. You've chosen different elements and put them together, and that's all it is, really, isn't it? And how you do it, you can be taught, the golden triangle rule, or you can be taught the rule of 3, or the this or that. But I think you do still need to have some sort of innate curiosity, I think maybe is the right word, is that you're always exploring and asking why, and questioning and wanting to know more, and yeah, and usually in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning, something will coagulate and come out.
Do you have any process to collect those ideas? Do you have like a journal or maybe an app you use?
I wish I could say I had an amazing sketchbook. Look at this wonderful sketchbook with all these. I love artist sketchbooks, and I'm not disciplined enough to do that. I have a phone which I take pictures on all the time, and I have then when I'm have time, I will then upload them onto the computer and put them in under texture or shape or color, or so each. But most of the time, it's just in my head. It's all. It's not a very helpful thing to say, but it's all sort of in there. And cutting, I suppose, cutting things out of magazines, sticking. I have got a folder of things I've cut out of magazines, but again, I'm not very disciplined at it. And yeah.
The good thing is, even when you think you've forgotten something, it's in there somewhere, and it will pop up.
Yeah, and you don't even know that it's popped up. You don't even where it came from, or it is scrolling through your old photographs on your phone is an interesting exercise, because you'll suddenly see something like, wow, that's cool. I can use, and quite and sort of approaching design is whether sometimes I have a design in mind that I know will work for a book cover. I then got to find the right book to work for that design. Or other times you start with the book and then you've got to go out and research around it and work that way around. It's it works both ways.
And when you say research, is it mostly internet, or do you have like an art library at home? I mean,
the internet is an amazing research tool. It is, you really have got access to pretty much everything. But then it is, Google has got its little fingers all, in your life, and it's not giving you the whole picture. And
it gets curated more and more.
Curated, exactly. And I really, it's like watching Netflix. You're like, everyone's going, it's amazing. It's got so much choice. You can watch anything. And you look at it and you're like, no, it's not. It's such a narrow tranche of entertainment and art and film that is put up by Netflix. And it looks broad, but as you say, it is curated by them. So no, I've got some reference books here. I've got some art books, but I usually start with the internet, and then quite often I use iBook Books a lot, which is a sort of secondhand bookshop, and just buy rubbish old copies of books, because looking at books is as helpful as looking at the internet, if not more, I think. But unbiased, as you probably are.
Okay, I guess that's it for this episode of our podcast. So thank you very much to all of our viewers and our members of our community. I'd like to also say thanks to our patrons on Patreon who give us their money to spend on editing of these videos, and probably in the future on other language versions of our podcast. At least we plan to start French and Spanish versions, and we will need some money on translation and all that stuff. So please join the crowd. The link to Patreon is in the description below. And well, see you next time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.